Mourners are gathering today to pay their respects to 14-year-old Devan Bracci-Selvey. The Ontario teen was stabbed to death outside of his school on Monday while his mother looked on in horror. Our Lorenda Redekop is at the site of the funeral and has more.
We had heard about 14-year-old Devan Bracci-Selvey, that he loved cars and also he dreamed of becoming a mechanic. We did speak with his brother outside the funeral. He didn't want to go on camera. He said for him this day is about remembering his brother, calling him a great kid gone too soon. We also spoke with a close friend of Devan's. Take a listen.
He was great. It's one word to describe him. I could describe him with so many words right now. He only had a small circle of trust. And if you were in that circle, he would defend you like a family member. He would be like a lioness protecting her cub.
Was he the best friend?
Yeah.
And you could hear the noise of those motorbikes through some of that clip. And this is a story that's really, people from all across the country have connected with it. And we did speak with some people who've come here. They didn't know Devan, they didn't know the family, but certainly they wanted to show their support. They connected with that story. And we did hear from some people. I spoke with a woman who said that her daughter went to the same high school, but years ago, and said she was bullied. And what we had heard about Devan's story is his mother saying that he'd been bullied since the second day of school. And people say they want something done. The school board is promising to investigate once the police investigation wraps up. And 2 people are charged with first-degree murder in this case, a 14-year-old and an 18-year-old.
For more on this and what schools can do to make sure something like this doesn't happen, we're joined now by Deborah Pepler. She is a distinguished research professor of psychology at York University and the co-founder of PrevNet, the Promoting Relationships and Eliminating Violence Network. So thank you for making time for us today. Let's begin with the fact that Selvey's mother has said repeatedly that she tried to address the issue of her son being bullied at the school. She said she made numerous complaints. What do you make of the fact that she feels the school didn't do anything about it?
Well, if you look at the Education Act in Ontario, principal and teachers' first responsibility is the safety of children in the school. Their second responsibility is to educate children. So I would have to agree that the school has not followed the guidelines in the Education Act, in the Safe Schools legislation that indicates when a student or a parent or a peer comes forward to indicate there's been bullying, they need to investigate it, and not only investigate it, but create a safety plan for a student who's being victimized to ensure that he or she can be safe on the way to and from school and during school hours.
And Deborah, just for the purposes of transparency to our audience, I just want to make clear that these 2 teenagers, the 14 and 18-year-old, have been charged with first-degree murder. We don't know their motives at this point. No one has really, truly clarified what the situation is that led up to this tragic death of this young man. But the mother is specifically saying that she believes it was linked to bullying. So that being said, what would you advise parents to do so that they can better protect their children if they feel they can't necessarily rely on the school itself?
Well, I think that the first strategy for parents is to keep the lines of communication open, because young people are very reticent or hesitant to talk about bullying. It's a shameful experience when your peers torment you like that. And keeping the lines of communication open is perhaps the most important thing. Being able to talk about this, problem solve, and move forward. And I would recommend talking to the school, ensuring or recommending to your child that he or she should go and talk to a trusted adult at the school, and keep talking and talking. And the other strategies parents can do is safety planning themselves. It may mean dropping their child off at the school early, picking him or her up early or later, so that they're not traveling alone on the streets to and from school, that's a heavy responsibility for parents. I think the school should be partnering with parents and ensuring that students are safe. Every child has a right to be safe.
Deborah, help us understand, because by all accounts, our society has become more enlightened about this. Universally, people agree that bullying is bad and we should be kind to one another. There are days dedicated to anti-bullying campaigns. Every school knows about it. Seemingly every individual knows about it. So why does bullying continue to the point where potentially someone loses a life?
Your question is a good one, and it's a very complex one to answer. Bullying is at its very core about power and power dynamics in relationships. And power is a very good thing to have. And as we move into adulthood, we gain more and more power and control over our own lives, and often power and control over others. The issue that we need to teach children and youth and adults as well is how to use their power positively to enable and support others rather than negatively to abuse, control, and distress others. So there are, of course, still people who don't know how to use their power positively. In our own data, we saw that students who bullied at a high rate moved into sexual harassment, they moved into dating violence, they moved into delinquency, they were at higher risk for substance use. So they haven't engage with the very basic elements of being a full human being and capable of being in relationships.
What happens to someone? Because while we have become more enlightened generally about it, people still say, well, I got bullied and I turned out fine. It's not a big deal. It's just part of growing up. What do you say to those folks? What is the impact of ongoing bullying?
Oh, there's been some research to suggest the impact on physical health, social well-being, and psychological health lasts out 40 years. That's how far they've been able to follow it out in a sample in the UK. And things have changed so much over the last 10 or 15 years, where bullying occurred and you could go home to the safety of your family. Now bullying intrudes into every aspect of life through social media. So a young person is never free of the pressure and the tension that bullying creates. And also the shame of being bullied or the ridicule associated with being bullied travels so quickly through social groups that the strategy to change your child's school is sometimes no longer adequate because the messaging crosses school boundaries and continues to follow a young person into a new school.